Hey guys, hi. So welcome back again to my channel Padhai Chatting. So let's start from where we dropped off. We discussed about data definition languages last session. That was basically about create statement, drop, alter, truncate, and rename. So today we will start with data query language. Now, what is a data query language? If you try to understand, mostly the whole SQL revolves around this DQL, data query language. Whatever query we start writing, we use the data query language. And it's all about select statement. Wherever you want to query, wherever you want to get the data, you would be using the select statement. What is a select statement? How do we write it? So today we'll basically start with the practical session where we'll see how a select works, what it does, and how we can manipulate it to get our desired output. So select is basically used to query the database. If you want to view a particular number of columns or if you want to see the whole of the data that is present inside your table, then select helps you there. Select is the command that we fire to see the data inside a table. So let's see how it works. So in the last session, we created a student info table, if you remember. So let's query student info itself and see what is there in the table and how to use select statement there. So the basic statement that we fire every now and then over a table is a star. Select star from the table name, and that would be student info. Now, every SQL statement you end with a colon, semicolon, so that if you write another select below it, it gets separated from the previous one. So here we have written select star from student info. So let's run it and see the output. So student info contains mainly student ID, student name, student address, and the subject. In the result set, you could see the column names at the top, the rows over here. So it contains data for student ID 100 to 105. And this is the data that you see. Now, if suppose you do not need the whole data that is present inside a table, you just want to see first few rows. Let us suppose only two columns, student ID and student name. Then how would you write a query for that? So after select, instead of star, you will write the column names separated by comma. So let's write it and see the result. Select student ID, comma, student name, and then you'll give a from keyword and the table name, student info. And not to forget, you'll put a semicolon after the end of the select statement. Now let's run it and see the result set. So you can see that only two columns appear now. As from the previous result, if I'll show you, all four columns were appearing in the result set. See, student ID, student name, address, and subject. But as we have given the column names that we want to select, only those two column names are appearing in the result set. So this way, you can filter out your selection. Table may have more than 100 columns, but a person who is analyzing the data would only like to see a few columns, few related columns. He doesn't want to see all the whole 100 columns. So every time you don't have to fire a select star. You can give the column names and only selectively see the result set. As of now, here you can see 100 for Sam, 101 ID for John, and similarly. Now suppose this was all about columns. that if you want to selectively fire a select statement, what you can do. Now, if suppose I don't want to see the whole of the data, I just want to see the student IDs lesser than 1 or 2, then what shall I do? There, you'll have to have a where statement at the end of the select statement to filter your result set. Now, what happens when you do a select star, whole of the data comes in. When you put a where condition, it filters the data according to your need. So let us suppose we want to fire select star from student info, where suppose we want to filter with all the student IDs which are lesser than or equal to 102. So we will see all the result set associated with the student ID 100, 101 and 102, as there is an equal sign also over here. So let's fire it, and you can see student ID with 100, 101 and 102. Similarly, you can even filter up one particular row. Suppose you want to see only student ID equal to 102. So you'll get only one single row. So it may happen while analyzing the data that you only want to see a particular result set or a single row. So here you can involve the where condition and find out the data. So with where you can limit your data between a particular range. And if suppose now you only want to see student ID, or suppose student ID and student name for student IDs lesser than or equal to 102. First, you are filtering the dataset also, and also selectively firing the select statement. So you can see only two columns are appearing, student ID and student name. And also the result set, the number of rows have been reduced to only 3. So this way you can query a particular table or a view and provide your condition in the where statement and find out the desired data that you want to see. You can even limit your column names in this query. So let's see. Now, another thing that I want to tell you about two important things. In any database, there is one default table already created. You don't have to create it. We use it mostly for fetching a particular value, either unioning, or you might even want to get the system date. For that you can utilize it. So you will find a table name with the name dual. See what is dual. Select star from dual table, and this is a default system table which you'll find in all the Oracle databases. It's a one row, one column table which contains the value X, and you can see the column name is dummy. Now, we mainly use it for having a system data, getting the username. Now, let's suppose we want something like system date, I guess. Want to get this date. Uh, you can even see the users from the dual table. Nothing like, see, the username is shell. You can even have another alias if you want to alias something, like suppose I want to give my own name as one column. Now this thing is called as aliasing. What I'm actually doing is I am putting this value to this column name. When you do an as to a particular column, the whole data set is named as name. So here select Shailesh as name will appear, a column will appear with the name as name, and under it would be Shailesh. So let's see, fire it. You can see the column name is name and the data is Shailesh. So it's a one row, one column basically, used mostly in union operation or finding the system data or something like that. So you can use it. So this is a default table. You don't have to create it. You can utilize it in your queries. Also, there is one another default thing added with your table, that is row num. Row num just basically gives a series account to your returned result set. So if I do a select row num over my previous table, suppose I take star from student info, but here as we have done a aliased the table as a, you need to provide this alias to your table names also. Now if you fire this statement, you will see what a row num is. For each and every returned data, you are getting a row num associated with each row. So for the first row, the row num is 1, second row, the row num is 2, and it serially increases. And it just gives you a series to append it as a column name to your result set. It does not, just to be very clear over here, it is not part of this student info table. This is not a column of student info table. It is just characteristic of every table. You can utilize it in your queries also. Suppose if you want to limit this table data, if you want only three rows of a table, you can fire select star from student where row num is less than equal to 3. When you'll fire it, it will result 3 rows. The first 3 rows it will return from the table. These are the two characteristics of the table. Apart from this, you can alias a particular column. You can even provide an alias to a table, like here we have aliased the table as A and then done an A dot star. And you can even alias a column. I can show you, like suppose if here you have given select student ID comma student name. If suppose you want to alias this as ID column, ID, and student name you want to alias as name, and then if you fire it, yes, you don't need codes over here. You can simply write names then aliases. Now the column name has changed to ID, which was student ID. So student ID is renamed as ID and student name is renamed as name. So these aliases you can use in your queries also if you want to, I mean, directly put the name to some other name. You do not think that whatever is being shown creates some confusion, then you can change it. And similarly, you can provide an alias to your table also and utilize the same. So whenever you alias your table name, you need to, and you are selecting it in your column. If you are selecting the columns, you need to provide that alias. Like here, I have done an A dot star. Similar way, if you are writing student ID, you need to provide A dot student ID. Okay. So up till now we have seen the select queries. Now we can even have an order by clause in your select statement. So suppose you are selecting select star from student info table and you want the data to be represented in a particular fashion. Like suppose you want to see this student ID in a descending order, all the records in a descending order, but they are ordered by this particular column. Then you can use an order by clause over here. by. And now see, you can either mention this column name, like let's suppose we mention this column name over here, student underscore ID. The default would be ascending order, so we for descending we need to provide the descending DEST attribute to this column name. And now if we'll fire it, all this data will get arranged according to student ID in a descending order fashion. So right now, student ID 100 is at the top. Let's fire and see what is at the top. You can see all the records are aligned according to student ID in a descending order. So 105 Steve is at the top right now. The same thing you can do, you can provide numbers over here. So suppose there are 1, 2, 3, 4 columns and I want to order it by the first column. So you can give 1 over here. If you provide 2, it will be ordered by student name. Let us see if I give 2, and the default would be ascending. So all the records would be arranged by student name in an ascending order fashion. So run this query and see. So you can see student name has been organized in an ascending order fashion. All the records have been assigned according to student name in an ascending order fashion. So similarly, you can use where conditions with an order by condition and all these select statements, whatever we discussed today. So these things we will also discuss in more um, descriptive way in our coming lectures. So stay tuned and do like and subscribe it if you haven't done it yet. Thank you.